You just bought the latest iPhone. For a moment, it felt good. Sleek, fast, powerful. Then, 2 days later, you see the Pro Max Titanium. It's newer, shinier, a half-second faster, and suddenly what's in your pocket feels obsolete. So you start wondering, should you upgrade? You buy a new couch. Then notice the old bookshelf doesn't match, so you get a new one, then a lamp, then matching pillows, then security cameras to protect it all. You didn't plan to spend thousands, but somehow it just kept going. You started going to the gym. You wanted to feel better, be stronger, just take care of yourself. But now your feed is full of ads, protein powders, testosterone boosters, compression shirts, alpha pre-workout stacks, biometric rings, $400 shoes designed by men of discipline. You tell yourself, I'm improving. But deep down you wonder, am I improving or just consuming? It doesn't happen all at once. It happens one item at a time, one video, one address, one impulse. And each time it feels like a choice. But when you zoom out, you realize you're not calling the shots. You're following them. At first, it looked like control, but now you can't tell the difference between your wants and the wants that were planted in you. Because that's the truth, isn't it? You didn't just want more. You were taught to want more. You were told that buying makes you a man, that upgrades mean progress, that new equals better, that spending is growth. You were sold the feeling of progress, not the reality of it. And now your closet is full. Your notifications won't stop buzzing. Your schedule is packed, your card is maxed, and your mind is exhausted. But you still feel behind, still feel like there's more to prove, still feel not enough. So you reach again for one more item, one more fix, one more thing that will finally complete the image you've been chasing. And that's where the trap is, because the question isn't, why don't I feel satisfied? The real question is, who benefits from me always feeling lacking? See, this isn't just bad luck. This isn't some glitch in your personality. This is a system designed to make you feel one thing over and over again. You are incomplete. Not poor, not broken, just not quite enough, not strong enough, not successful enough, not admired enough, not masculine enough. But don't worry. They have just the product, just the course, just the lifestyle, just the girl, just the plan to fix it. And if you buy now, maybe you'll finally feel whole. That's the voice, that's the whisper behind the branding, behind the algorithm, behind the feed. Buy this, become more. But here's the truth, you were never meant to feel whole, not in this system. Because if you did, if you felt content, if you felt powerful, if you felt clear-headed, they couldn't sell you anything. They couldn't push you. They couldn't profit from your longing. That's what they fear most. A man who doesn't need. Because a man who doesn't need can't be manipulated. He doesn't buy status. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't play the game. And that's dangerous. So instead, you are fed a constant stream of desire. Desire dressed up as motivation, manipulation dressed up as inspiration, lack dressed up as ambition. And the more you consume, the more you feel behind. The more you strive, the more you feel small. And the cycle continues. You think you're making progress, but you're running on a treadmill they built for you. And the faster you go, the more exhausted you become, without ever getting anywhere real. So maybe it's time to ask a different question. Not, what's the next thing I should buy? But, when did my desires stop being mine? When did I stop choosing and start chasing? Who taught me that freedom looks like ownership, but feels like debt? Who taught me that self-improvement means more gear, more tools, more hacks? Never stillness, never peace, never enough. Because if you never feel enough, you'll never stop reaching. And if you never stop reaching, they never stop winning. That's not an accident. That's design. And if you think all of this is just some modern accident, some unfortunate side effect of capitalism and content, you'd be wrong. Because this didn't start with TikTok. It didn't start with Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. It started almost a century ago with one man. A man who didn't just understand human behavior, he weaponized it. His name was Edward Bernays. You've probably never heard of him, but you've been living inside his strategy your entire life. He was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. But while Freud studied the unconscious to heal people, Bernays used it to influence them, not to understand desire, but to manufacture it. He realized something terrifyingly simple. People don't make decisions based on logic. They act based on emotion, on the desire to belong, to feel admired, to feel powerful. And once you understand that, once you know how to trigger emotion, you can control behavior quietly, permanently. He called it engineering consent. Let that sink in. Not earning consent, engineering it. Bernays believed that the masses, especially men, were too emotional to be trusted with their own choices. So they had to be guided, shaped, steered, without knowing it. And how do you do that? You don't tell men what to buy. You tell them what kind of man they'll become if they buy it. You sell identity. You sell status. You sell the illusion of power. In 1929, Bernays ran a campaign for the car industry. But he didn't talk about mileage or quality. He spread one idea. The bigger the car, the more masculine the man. He linked horsepower to dominance, leather seats to status, shiny metal to male power. And it worked. Men didn't just want a car anymore. They wanted what the car said about them. He didn't sell transportation. He sold validation. That campaign changed everything. It fused masculinity with consumption. It made spending money feel like becoming someone. And that formula still drives marketing today. Buy this cologne, be desirable. Buy this watch, be respected. Buy this course, become alpha. But Bernays didn't stop at products. He worked with politicians, governments, the military. He helped the U.S. government rally men to fight in wars, not with facts but with symbols. He painted war as a noble rite of passage, as sacrifice, as legacy. He made posters, films, slogans, all designed to tap into a man's pride, fear, duty, and insecurity. It didn't matter what the war was really about. All that mattered was how it could be framed. He understood that media isn't just about sharing news. It's about shaping belief, not reflecting the world, but rewriting it, according to whoever pays the most. That's the dark legacy we inherited, because Bernays showed the world that if you could control what men feel, you could control what they do. You don't have to use force, just association. You don't need to silence a man, just give him something louder to chase. Make him believe he's choosing, when all along he's only reacting. That's how control survives in a free society, through perception, through story, through emotion. And today's media, it didn't abandon Bernays' playbook, it upgraded it. Now, it doesn't just speak to millions, it studies them, tracks them, learns them, adapts to them. You are not just the customer, you're the product, you're the test subject, you're the data point. And every scroll, every ad, every algorithm is designed to trigger one thing. That part of you that still wants to be seen, still wants to be enough, still wants to win. And that's the legacy you were born into. Not freedom, but influence. Not truth, but persuasion. So if you feel like something's off, like you're always chasing, never arriving, you're not broken. You're just playing a game that was built by someone else. And now, it's time to see how it plays out on the battlefield you visit every day. Your phone, your feed, your future. Because Bernays laid the blueprint, but modern media perfected the machine. So here's the truth you were never supposed to see. Media doesn't want you to be free. It wants you to stay hungry. Not for knowledge, not for growth, but for approval. Because a man who always feels lacking is a man who's always ready to spend. Modern media doesn't just sell products, it sells comparisons. It sells the idea that someone out there is doing better than you, living harder, lifting heavier, loving more passionately, earning more, sleeping with women you wish you could even talk to. And if you just bought the right thing, you might finally measure up. You've been trained to believe you are always one step away, one suit away from being respected, one car away from being envied, one six-pack away from being desired, one watch, one course, one mindset shift away from finally becoming the man you were supposed to be. And where did those ideas come from? Not your soul, not your principles. They came from screens. They were installed. You were taught that the life you have isn't quite good enough, that the man you are needs work, not inner work, outer polish. You're not told to understand yourself. You're told to upgrade yourself. Because in their version of masculinity, you're not a man until they say you are, until you look like the guy in the ad, until you have her, until you win big, until you're powerful, shredded, unbothered, admired. But here's the part they'll never say out loud. That version of man isn't real. It's manufactured, it's curated, it's carefully staged to make you feel just insecure enough to chase it. You're not living your life. You're chasing their blueprint. You think you're being ambitious, but you're just being conditioned. And the more you chase it, the more you lose track of what you actually want, what actually matters. Because this isn't about the car. It's not about the abs. It's not even about the success. It's about control. If they can keep you striving, they can keep you buying. If they can keep you comparing, they can keep you quiet. If they can keep you chasing enough, they can make sure you never feel it. That's how the system wins. It doesn't have to make you miserable. It just has to make you almost happy, almost proud, almost confident, almost worthy. Because almost is never enough. And that gap between who you are and who they told you to be, that's where the money is. That's the machine. A system designed to keep men dissatisfied, to make you feel like you haven't earned your place, like you're not really a man until you prove it. And how do you prove it? You buy, you build, you perform, you sacrifice. But no matter how much you give, it's never enough, because the bar keeps moving. You're told to hustle harder, push further, buy smarter, and still the feeling lingers. Why do I still feel behind? Because the game was never meant to be won. It was meant to be played over and over, until your energy is drained, until your mind is anxious, until your soul is numb, and you can't even remember what freedom felt like. That's the tragedy. Not that you were weak, not that you were lazy, but that you were loyal to an idea of manhood that was designed to keep you chasing, not choosing. Because if you ever stopped chasing, if you ever looked in the mirror and said, "I'm already enough," the system would collapse. So it can't let that happen. It has to keep you insecure, keep you reactive, keep you consuming. But now that you've seen it, now that the veil's been lifted, you have a choice. Will you keep playing a rigged game, or will you learn how to walk away? So if you're wondering, how did this manipulation become so relentless, so inescapable? How did it move from a few magazine ads to every scroll, every swipe, every second you spend online? It's because Bernays' ideas didn't die, they evolved. He started with newspapers and radio, then television. But today, we have something he could have only dreamed of. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, algorithms that know your insecurities better than you do. Feeds that adjust in real time to keep you feeling not enough. Endless content, all whispering the same thing. You could be better. You should be better. You're falling behind. You open your phone just to check the time. 10 minutes later, you're watching a shredded guy in a rented Lamborghini selling mental toughness. Or a fake business guru telling you the reason you're not rich is because you still sleep 8 hours a night. You scroll past a clip that says real men never complain, then one that says if you're not making 6 figures by 30, you're already losing. And then it hits you. You didn't come here for this, but now you're in it. Somewhere between the 4th reel and the 7th success mindset tip, you start to feel behind. Not because you are, but because that's the point. And then it happens. You click the link. You check the price. You think, maybe this is what I've been missing. Testosterone boosters, no excuse workout plans, courses to become alpha, memberships for high-value men, all of them selling the same thing, relief. Relief from the quiet voice inside you that says, you're not enough. Relief from the pressure to perform, to impress, to rise above. Relief from being average. But it's not relief, it's bait. And the second you bite, the system knows it's working. Because the product doesn't matter. What matters is the emotion it taps into. You're not buying supplements, you're buying a story. A story that tells you masculinity is a constant competition, that worth is earned through optics, that confidence comes from consumption. But real confidence isn't bought, it's built. And here's the dangerous part. Even self-improvement content isn't immune. Most of what calls itself motivational is just Bernays in a hoodie. It doesn't want you to awaken, it wants you to keep grinding, keep watching, keep spending. It doesn't care if you change, it cares if you convert. From viewer to buyer, from man to market. Even your deepest desire to grow is being monetized. Because in today's world, your insecurity is a business model, and the better they can target it, the more predictable you become. That's why these platforms don't just watch what you click. They track how long you pause, what makes your eyes widen, what triggers that tiny drop of dopamine. They're not serving you content. They're serving you back to yourself, packaged and sold to the highest bidder. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It feels like it's for you. It feels personal, helpful, masculine, even empowering. But that feeling was designed. And the more it works, the more you believe it's working for you. But it's not. It's working on you. Because the algorithm doesn't care if you become stronger. It cares if you stay hooked. That's the game. A feedback loop of insecurity leading to a stimulus, then a purchase, followed by a momentary high, and then back to feeling not enough. Repeat. Until you don't even remember what peace feels like, until silence feels like failure, until stillness feels like falling behind. And all the while you think you're evolving, becoming better. But you're just becoming a better target. So maybe it's time to ask, is this really self-improvement? Or is it just self-extraction disguised as progress? Because the more they can extract from you, the more power they keep. And the more you believe it's your idea, the deeper the hook goes. At some point, you have to stop blaming yourself. You're not broken, you're not weak, you're not lazy or unmotivated or falling behind. You're exhausted because you were trained to chase a life that was never really yours. From the moment you could think, you were told what matters. Good grades, a good college, a good job, a nice watch, a bigger house, a prettier girl, a life that looks perfect from the outside. But no one ever asked you, what do you want when no one's watching? Because that's the part they couldn't sell to you. See, you weren't just raised, you were programmed. Programmed to believe that your value comes from outside, from approval, from admiration, from applause. And media, modern, relentless media, doubled down on that lie. It taught you that success isn't about fulfillment. It's about optics. It's about being seen, being followed, being liked. You don't exist until someone else notices you. But here's the trap. When your worth depends on how others see you, you stop seeing yourself. You stop listening to your gut. You stop asking real questions. You start performing. And the more you perform, the more fake it all feels. Until one day you look in the mirror and you don't recognize the man staring back. You wonder, when did I become this? This tired, this reactive, this disconnected, and still, you push harder because that's what you were taught, right? If you're unhappy, work more. If you're anxious, buy more. If you're stuck, grind more. But what if the grind is the cage? What if the real reason you feel empty isn't because you're failing, but because you're living by rules that were designed to drain you? This is where philosophy comes in, not as some abstract theory, but as a weapon of clarity. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "He who lives by the eyes of others dies in the shadows of himself." Think about that. If your life is built on external validation, then your soul will always live in the dark. That darkness, that quiet misery you carry around, it's not weakness. It's your inner self crying out, begging you to stop performing and start living. Because you weren't born to be consumed. You weren't built to live inside someone else's fantasy of what a man should be. You were trained deliberately by a culture that profits from your confusion. And that confusion has a function. It keeps you chasing, it keeps you consuming, it keeps you quiet. Because a man who's unsure of himself doesn't rebel, he obeys. And that's exactly what Bernays figured out. If you can teach a man that his worth depends on how others see him, he'll spend his whole life trying to be seen. He'll buy what you tell him to. He'll work for titles that mean nothing. He'll compete in games he never chose. He won't even notice that he's playing on someone else's board. And when he burns out, he'll blame himself. Not the system, not the conditioning, not the lie. That's how deep this goes. You've been taught to measure your masculinity with external yardsticks. Money, status, followers, attention. But none of those things are real if they aren't yours. Not truly, not consciously, not aligned with who you are. So if you feel like you're drowning, it's not because you can't swim. It's because you were thrown into the ocean and told to chase the horizon. A horizon that always moves the closer you get. That's not your failure. That's their strategy. Because a man who finally feels whole doesn't need what they're selling. And that makes him dangerous, so they feed you lack. They sell you escape. They give you goals that can't be reached, so you'll never stop running. But now you know. Now the fog is lifting, and once you see the cage for what it is, you can finally start building the key. Now that you see it, now that you finally understand how deep the game goes, what do? Do you delete every app, smash your phone, go live in the woods? That's not power, that's panic. The answer isn't to run away from the world. It's to move through it with your eyes open. You don't need to reject everything. You just need to stop accepting it without question. Because once you see the machine, you can choose how to interact with it. You don't have to consume like a slave. You can consume with strategy, with awareness, with ownership. Not every ad is evil. Not every product is poison. But if you don't know why you're buying it, you probably weren't the one who made the choice. The goal here isn't purity, it's power. Power to choose, power to define, power to walk away when something no longer serves you. Because no, you are not a permanent victim, not unless you decide to stay one. And that decision, it starts the moment you begin to question, the moment you pause before clicking, before buying, before reacting. That pause, that's freedom. That's the beginning of authorship. The moment you go from being shaped to being a shaper. So ask yourself, am I consuming because I'm clear or because I'm empty? Am I chasing an identity or living one? Because real masculinity doesn't come from mimicry. It doesn't come from posturing or image or validation. It comes from clarity, from values you choose, from principles you stand on, from knowing who you are even when no one's watching. You don't need to become an alpha. You just need to become sovereign. A man who doesn't need to be louder because he's already grounded. A man who doesn't need to prove because he's already decided. A man who isn't constantly reacting because he's already anchored. And that kind of man, He doesn't fall for every trick. He sees the message and asks, "What's the intent behind this?" He sees the offer and asks, "What part of me are they trying to trigger?" He sees the noise and chooses silence, not out of fear, but out of strength. Because freedom isn't the absence of need. It's knowing what you truly need and who's trying to sell you the rest. You're allowed to want things, to build, to grow, to succeed. But if your life is driven by lack, you'll always be chasing. And if it's driven by clarity, you'll start creating. And the moment you start creating, you stop being a consumer of identity and become the author of it. That's the shift. That's what Bernays feared most. Not the man who hates the system, but the man who sees it and doesn't need it. So no, you don't have to shut down the media, but you do have to stop letting it tell your story. Write your own. Choose your own definitions. Define success by your standards, not theirs. And when the noise gets loud, when the ads scream, the metrics rise, the comparisons creep in, breathe, pause, ask yourself, is this me or is this programming? Because once you know the difference, you are free.